right across Hindenburg. So we're starting to see some new plantings now, and some of the replacement trees are starting to look pretty good.
Nice.
All right, I'm seeing at least 5 mostly happy faces of planning committee members. So I'll call our 51st planning committee meeting of the term to order. We acknowledge that Ottawa is located on unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, whose culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. Il est important de souligner que la ville d'Ottawa se trouve sur un territoire non cédé de la nation algonquine Anishinaabe, dont la culture et la présence ont enrichi et continuent d'enrichir ces terres. Committee Coordinator Eric Pelot, can you do a roll call, please?
Councillor Dudas.
I'm here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Menard.
Here.
Councillor Cloutier.
Present.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Co-chair Moffitt. Co-chair Gower.
Présent.
You have quorum, Chair.
Thank you, Eric. This is a public meeting to receive oral submissions pursuant to the Development Charges Act listed as item 1 on today's agenda. This is also a public meeting to consider the proposed zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 2 and 3 on today's agenda. For items 2 and 3, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if Council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of receipt of the application for a zoning bylaw amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council on November 10th, 2021, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. So, an interesting fact of appeals, you do not need to make a oral or written submission to appeal a DC bylaw. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? I'm seeing none. We're going to do confirmation of minutes. We have 4 different meetings we need to approve minutes for. First is the last regular meeting of Planning Committee from September 23rd, 2021. Are the minutes confirmed?
Confirmed.
Carried.
Thank you. Minutes for the special joint meeting of Planning Committee and Community and Protective Services Committee for September 27th, 2021. That was the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Are the minutes confirmed?
Confirmed.
Thank you. And the minutes for the special joint committee of Planning Committee and Built Heritage Subcommittee, that was related to the Ottawa Hospital Master Plan, October 1st, 2021. Are the minutes confirmed?
Great.
Confirmed.
Thank you. And the minutes for the special meeting of Planning Committee, this was for the Ottawa Hospital again, October 1st and October 4th, 2021. Are the minutes confirmed?
Confirmed.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. Thank you. And we will be looking at the minutes for the official plan joint meeting at the next meeting of Planning Committee. So we don't have to confirm that today. We have 3 items on the agenda for this morning. I'll just go through each one and see if we need to hold them for further discussion. The first is the new zoning bylaw, proposed budget and revised work plan for 2020.
I have a few questions on that, please.
Should we hold that, Councillor Leeper, or are they quick questions? Or
Let's hold it, please.
we will hold that. No problem. The second item is a zoning bylaw amendment for 2865 Riverside Drive in River Ward. We have a delegation, so we'll hold that one. And the third item is a zoning bylaw amendment for 129 and 133 Catherine Street in Somerset Ward. We don't have any speakers, but I understand Councillor McKenney would like to introduce a motion that will be moved by Councillor Leeper. on their behalf. Councillor McKenney?
Yes, thanks, thanks, Chair. Did you want me to introduce that now?
Yeah, if you can, let's put it out there, and if we can deal with it now, we will, rather than hold it.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is on the zoning bylaw amendment report 129-133 Catherine Street. Whereas the owner of 129 and 133 Catherine also owns 352 Somerset, also known as Somerset House at the southeast corner of Somerset and Bank, an individually designated building under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Whereas the eastern portion of 352 Somerset partially collapsed in October 2007. Whereas council permitted the subsequent demolition of the eastern portion of the building in 2016 as it posed a danger to the public, whereas the building has been in a state of disrepair since. Whereas in May 2017, council approved a rehabilitation plan for the building and the issuance of a heritage permit with a 2-year expiry, which the property owner allowed to expire without undertaking any significant work on the building. Whereas no significant improvements to the property have been made by the property owner since the partial demolition of the building. Whereas the property owner has presented numerous proposals for 352 Somerset over the years, extensively meeting with planning and heritage staff, and failed to make any positive progress, shows that he has no intention to redevelop the site. Whereas this property owner also owns a surface parking lot at 154 O'Connor in contravention of the zoning bylaw, for which temporary 3-year permission lapsed in 2018 and a reapplication has not been sought. Whereas a commercial parking lot has been established at 138 Gloucester, just west of 154 O'Connor site, also in contravention of the zoning bylaw. Whereas given the history of neglect, apathy, and disregard for city bylaws and policies, there is no way of knowing this property owner will follow through and build at the Catherine site. Therefore, be it resolved that Planning Committee to further report zoning bylaw amendment 129 and 133 Catherine Street until there is proof this property owner can be a responsible downtown property owner and commit to deliverable plans to rehabilitate the Somerset House site. And be it further resolved that there be no further notice pursuant to subsection 3417 of the Planning Act. So I think that the motion is pretty self-explanatory, but Somerset House has been an issue for the city of Ottawa. It's been an embarrassment for the city of Ottawa for many years. And we have seen the owner in front of us or his delegate in front of us many times. We don't have the tools that we need, the leverage that we need to redevelop this property. I want to also point out that there is, he was given a notice of violation back in 2017 to fix up at least the heritage elements of the building that dragged through court, for years through COVID. And when we finally got in front of a judge, he was able to convince the judge for yet another extension. So this is a Part 4 heritage building that is falling into, it's being demolished through neglect. And we really don't have much leverage, outside of a possible expropriation, which, is exceptionally difficult to follow through on. We don't have much leverage to compel this owner to fix up this building, which is in a prominent downtown corner at the corner of Bank and Somerset. So I would ask my colleagues if there are any questions, and I seek your support on deferring this subsequent application.
So there are some questions, so we'll hold this item and we'll come back to it as third on the agenda. Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, so we held all the items. Let's go back to our held items. The first item was the new zoning bylaw for the proposed budget and revised work plan for 2022-2024. We do have staff here who could give us a quick overview, but I think most councillors have had a chance to read the report, so I think it'd be best just to jump right into questions. Councillor Leeper, you asked for the item to be held. Would you like to go first with questions?
Sure. So obviously this is going to be a massive effort, and I would suggest that it's going to be an even more difficult exercise than the official plan was. Every neighborhood is going to want to have touch with planning staff. Every councillor is going to be asking city staff to come meet with the community associations. I've got 9 of them in Kitchissippi, or 10. Next term I'll have 9, and I'll be asking you to meet with those as a group and maintain fairly frequent touch with them. Is this sufficient budget? And what I would ask is, we're asking for an additional 6.2 million or something like that for the exercise. How much did the official plan cost to do? Even ballpark figure.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can answer that question. The budget for the official plan was in round numbers $3.76 million, and it looks like we'll be spending probably all of that. We're on track to exhaust that budget. So that was the cost of the official plan.
Will the budget that is proposed give you the same resources as for the official plan, or fewer?
David, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, the budget that we're looking at here is a couple of things. We've got a team of 5 planners that I will be looking to retain, who will be focusing on residential zones. I will be looking to retain 4 additional planners to help us out with non-residential zones. So that's the mixed-use commercial centers, TDs, industrial zones, environmental zones, things like that. I'll also be looking for 4 additional planners as support staff to deal with exceptions, schedules, overlays, legal non-conforming issues, all of the other issues that need to come up, projections, administration sections, all of those things. As well, we also have a fairly significant GIS exercise as well that we're going to be doing. It's unfortunate that I actually had a beautiful presentation with just fantastic visuals for you.
Send it to me,
just to sort
please.
of showcase what it is. I'll send you some of those photos that are pretty cool. But we also have a big part of this as well is really bringing a mapping framework into the 21st century as well. So we also have a team of GIS people who are working on that as well. So we really do have an all hands on deck situation here. We know that we are going to need to send wave after wave of planners into the community associations to have those hard discussions. And to do those lengthy discussions that need to be done. And quite frankly, the time frame that we have is tight. It is aggressive. 3 years may seem like a long time, but 3 years when you're talking about a zoning bylaw and when you're talking about dealing with property owners on a lot by lot basis will go by very quickly.
So, but the question was, how does the effort compare to the OP effort? Is this a similar level of resources or a lower level of resources?
No, I'll start with that, David, and you can add. Certainly, I would say it's almost double the resources for the official plan. We had 9 temporary FTEs on the OP team, and I can't add up the numbers, but David's resources are significantly more.
Okay. And sorry, as you were chatting, David, I also realized I should have mentioned the equity seeking groups as well, right? It's not just community associations. I think our community associations were relatively pleased, certainly in Kitchissippi, at the touch points. I think they probably would have liked more. And certainly the equity seeking groups, I think we're looking for a stronger role and more contact with the planning team as well. So yeah, I'll vote for this. I guess the question I have is, if you need more resources beyond double what we put into the OP, what are our mechanisms for getting that? Because I don't want to run into a situation where we're running out of budget and planners have to stop going into the various communities we serve.
Yeah, I think, Councillor, if I could just answer that, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we are going through and looking for the clean copy of the official plan, going through all of the various motions and changes that have occurred through Planning Committee, ARAC, and also Council, to get a complete picture of what that policy package is going to look like. And we'll be coming back to council with a detailed work plan in early next year that will lay out exactly how we are going to do the zoning exercise in detail as we go through. If we find that we are going to have some issues with respect to phasing or allocating priorities with respect to all of the various secondary plan asks that have also come out of that exercise, we will go through in detail what we will need to do to respond to all of those challenges then. You will have another opportunity to look at this in detail and understand very clearly what it is that we are going to do and how we are going to do it.
Do we have the opportunity to go into DCs if we need more resources, or will it be tax supported?
The allocation that we're doing right now is a development charge amendment. So 90% of the zoning budget will be supported by DC as part of this package that we presented here today. If there is additional scope change or unforeseen circumstances, then that's something that we would have to revisit at that time. I can't make predictions right now.
Okay, I mean, we promised a lot of communities some special attention through secondary plans and targeted looks. And I'm looking at the budgets that have been allocated for things like community design plans, community infrastructure plans, $3 million or so. And I'm just not sure that we're going to be able to fulfill quite the level of commitment that we made through the OP process with that level of budget. But I will keep an open mind that you've proposed the right amount of money. So with that, I'll turn it over to back to the chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Brockington.
Thanks, Jared. Good morning. I think if we just look at the actual budget that's proposed here and compare it to the OP, you could conclude that this is a lot more intensive. It is the comprehensive zoning bylaw. And when I look at the work plan, I see terms like consultation with the public, consultation with stakeholders, but that doesn't give me detail. And maybe this is a high level work plan and we're not getting into the weeds as far as to how this will be done, but there's very high expectations in my ward that the consultation on the zoning bylaw, how we're going to do this, is going to be significantly more intensive than the OP. The OP was the global planning policy, 5 big move white papers. Now it's going to impact people street by street, and the expectations are very high. It's not come to one of our meetings and have a feedback session. As Mr. Wise knows, I have presidents who want to know street by street how they're going to be impacted. And so how do we match expectations with the ability to deliver over the next 3 years? Because people who are apprehensive just about the global OP and how their neighborhoods are going to change are going to want that detail. They're going to want that opportunity for planning staff to come into the neighborhood and have that, not one discussion. This is going to have to be multiple discussions. And so is that factored in? Do you have enough staff? Do you have the communication staff that we need? Do we have the human resources to go across the city to have those meetings? And so you're going to have to reach out to every member of council to talk about expectations, talk about how we're going to do that. I don't think community by community is realistic, but definitely ward-wide, the ward council can help shepherd those meetings. But that's my number one concern going forward is people really need to understand how the zoning bylaw is going to impact them, and they need input to that process. So I'm curious for your comments on that, please.
Mr. Chairs, I think that there is no doubt whatsoever that staff fully understand and recognize the significance, complexity, and scale of what it is that we are about to undertake. Councillor Brockington, as you know, certainly I'm well aware of the level of detail that certain community associations are looking for. Quite frankly, they deserve to know it. One of the things that we are talking about when we talk about zoning is we are talking about impacting people's homes right where they live. And what we find in zoning is often sometimes the argument over what might seem like a small detail, 0.3 meters in some cases, can mean the world to people. And that's something that we have deep respect for, that we have deep empathy for. And we fully intend to make every effort to do as much as we can to reach out and have those discussions with people. That is, though, needing to be bound by our commitment and requirement to implement what was just passed yesterday, which is the official plan, and also achieve the growth management strategy, which means that we are going to have to come into those neighborhoods with a clear plan, but we're also going to have to come into those neighborhoods with a clear understanding of what is up for discussion and what is not up for discussion. And at the same time, be willing to work with those communities to discuss how we are going to make those numbers work within their neighborhoods. So believe me, I'm well aware of what it is that we're facing. It is a daunting challenge, no doubt, but we will work our way through this step by step. It is a big project that we're about to undertake, a project that very few cities around the world have had the courage to really go through and undertake. So we are certainly looking forward to moving into the next step, which is to lay out what that detailed step-by-step plan is going to be in order to make this happen.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Menard.
Whoops, press the video button instead of my sound button. Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the report. Looks good to me. I think I'll echo comments of Councillor Leeper and Councillor Brockington around our community associations, really wanting to dig in on this. And I mean that, I have 7 community associations in my ward. They're very much interested in workshopping. They don't want to see a high level presentation to them. They really want to get in a room or Zoom and workshop back and forth and test assumptions. So that's going to be really important for this exercise because their knowledge level is extremely high. They know their communities best, and they really want to work with staff directly. And I think we've found through the official plan process, there is an ability to get things through that may not be what everybody wants, but we'll find that middle ground. And in this case, that's going to be really, really important. So just to emphasize, the goal is not so much those broad, high-level presentations in consultations, but actual workshopping and meeting on a regular basis, I think with FCA, community associations, and the broader community to talk about what they want and to see that reflected in the plan as much as possible. I had a couple of questions as well. One is around the inclusionary zoning bylaw. So we had talked a lot about the need to approve the official plan as early as possible so that this could come fairly soon after. I'm wondering about an update on the timing of that. Is that set to come with the rest of the zoning bylaw update? My understanding is a lot more work has been done on that in advance and that there could be some pieces ready. And I say that reading the report, seeing that there might be a quick hits piece and a big moves piece that comes. So I just would like to know where that portion fits and how we're going to be undertaking the work over the next couple of years.
Yeah, inclusionary zoning is not going to wait until the 3-year process for the zoning bylaw. We'll be bringing inclusionary zoning forward very, very soon. We've had a consultant working on the housing market analysis, which is required by provincial regulations. That housing market analysis is nearly complete. We are also looking at what Toronto is currently doing. They're the first municipality to take the step to move forward in inclusionary zoning. So we're communicating very closely with their staff to see how that is rolling out. Certainly watching very closely the reactions with industry, the discussions with stakeholder groups, all of those things as we go along. And we're certainly watching and seeing what they do and seeing how things are going. We expect that we will be looking forward to moving with the housing market analysis and making that public in the next couple of months and engaging in a public consultation process and discussions on how that's going to occur in an Ottawa context, again, over the next few months as well, too. So we may be in a position to be able to bring forward inclusionary zoning, including an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw updates in the next year. And that is certainly something that we would like to do. We certainly recognize that this is a piece of the housing continuum package that we would like to address. But we also recognize as well that that is something that has an awful lot of moving parts to it and an awful lot of sensitivities to it as well. But it's not going to wait 3 years.
Thanks, Mr. Wise. That's very helpful. With regard to development charges, again, a separate conversation, but there's some implication here. My understanding is the DC full update, which we really badly need in this city, would not be taking place until next term of council. I think 2024 is the schedule for that. That's a separate piece. Is that any way related to this? Will it come at the same time, or do you have any other information for us on how that'll work?
I don't know if Don has more information with respect to the DC bylaw schedule for the update, but certainly with respect to relationships between the zoning, between the land use, between development charges, between cash and bill of parkland, between all of those pieces, there is significant interrelationship between all of those documents. So we all do need to be working together, just as a simple codex here. A lot of definitions are shared back and forth. For example, what is a multi-unit building? What is an apartment building? And how do those DC rate calculations roll out from there? So there is an awful lot of interplay. Don, I don't know if you wanted to speak to the schedule.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the councillor is correct in terms of the timing of the new DC bylaw. My understanding is that does not affect this ask for the funding for the zoning bylaw. So I can confirm the specific dates, but I believe it is 2024.
Okay, thank you for that. And just one last comment is we're going to be undertaking this exercise. It's going to be a lot of work for city staff, a lot of work for our communities and for council. And I hope there's been a lot of promises made through the OP process around this, around tree preservation, our green space, et cetera. A lot of that has been referred to this process. And so another plea, I think, for us to defend this when it is done, that we hold it up and say, this is brand new. Let's defend what we're putting forward as much as possible. Applications are allowed to come in, of course, but this will be really important to get behind and stick to what we say when we do it. So thank you again, Mr. Wise, Mr. Herwire, and back to you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. I'm seeing no more questions from the committee. Thank you, David, for the information this morning. Are the report recommendations carried?
Carried.
Carried, thank you. And just to note, this report is also going to be considered by ARAC on November 4th next week. Item number 2 was the zoning bylaw amendment for 2865 Riverside Drive in River Ward. We have a speaker, Steve Farrago, who's here. Steve, are you with us this morning?
He's coming online now, Chair.
Thank you. And we also have the applicant who's available as well.
Chair, I take it there's no presentation by staff if we're going to delegations right away.
Well, we could have a presentation, but I think we'll proceed right to our delegations this morning.
Sorry, I guess apologies. Steve Fargo is here.
Hi, Steve. Good morning. So you have 5 minutes and the floor is yours.
Okay. I don't have a formal presentation. Forgive me. This is my first time in this type of forum and not aware of the actual protocols. So since I have 5 minutes, so allow me to provide maybe some background and then I'll ask my questions, if that's okay. So with regards to this zoning to the 2865, which is the St. Patrick's home, there's some history there which I like to highlight. So there's a new building that was built for St. Patrick's home back in around the 2011, 2013 timeframe, and where I live in the condo area on 2909 Riverside Drive, and I'm guessing as well for the Egan Road and Gardner Avenue adjacent homes, was a nightmare for us, basically. Construction, was obviously daily, and I'm talking daily, 7 days a week, for unless stat holidays occurred, which that was the break. But what was the concern in addition to the daily noise, because I work from home, even today, obviously what most of you now do because of COVID. But nevertheless, back then I worked from home as well, mostly. And so that was bad enough during the day, but the fact that they went before the allowable times of 7 a.m. and after the 2200 time frame, or even on weekends, the 9 to 20, I can't remember what the actually the stop time now is on weekends, but I think it's 9 a.m. on to start, but I can't remember the end time. But anyhow, they went beyond those allowable times. I complained to the city of Ottawa a couple times to no avail. I even went actually to talk to the foreman and ask him if if he could respect the hours. That worked for maybe a couple days, but that sort of subsided very quickly. Further to that, what that caused, other than the noise, obviously, there was also the construction, which creates a lot of, I'll call it for lack of a better term, some sort of sand type dust, which was left in my backyard, all my neighbors' backyards, the patio, the patio door windows, the bedroom windows, and the constant cleaning was intensively laborish, basically, and had to be done often. And if you think about that, that was for at least, for a year, if not more, solid, that had to be done on a regular basis. So obviously winter time didn't affect, but then the summertime was painful, to say the least. So, and I'll just make a quick comment that, think about where you're living right now. Sorry, just before I say that. And then, a 5-story building went behind our backyards, basically, right? So think about where you live. If you live in a single home right now, and suddenly a 5-story building gets erected behind your backyard, there's no more privacy. It's completely gone, right? So further to that as well, the new building that was created in 2013, this has created an amplified sound from Riverside Drive traffic. Before, I never heard any noise. Now I hear it constantly, the street traffic, or even as far as I can't remember the park's name now, Confederation Heights. As far as that, it's unbelievable, actually. Not to mention, loss of sunlight as well. So all this to say, with the additional construction or the rezoning that St. Patrick's, at 2865 is looking to do, my fear is all this will be another nightmare that will reoccur as to where I live. Notwithstanding as well, I know this is not on the topic at hand, but 729 Ridgewood Avenue is also, there's also a zoning bylaw that is planning to be done. I'm not sure actually where that sits right now, but I know that's forthcoming as well. So if you know that's this part of Ottawa, that means on both my left and right side, that there's going to be some construction happening, basically.
1 minute left.
So all this to say, so if there's basically, if this, I'm not sure if hopefully this is recorded when I'm saying into the minutes, but I'm not sure how, so for the working time bylaw, how that's going to be respected. If there's going to be any mess that I will incur, or the private citizens will incur, or residential, I should say, that will incur, what will the city of Ottawa or the construction company do to help us out here, instead of us taking care of the, or left to do this labor work of cleaning our homes constantly, basically.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. We have a question for you from Councillor Brockington.
Thanks, Chair. Just with some leniency, I just want to make a statement to Mr. Farago. Mr. Farago, I'm your city councillor. It's Riley Brockington speaking. I took over after the current St. Pat's home building was built, but I just want to share with you my strategy for construction projects. I like to host not just an information meeting before it comes to this committee, but before they actually start construction, I host a construction mitigation meeting with the contractor and local residents and the property owner, and we go through the construction timelines and we talk about mitigation efforts to ensure that the impact on neighboring residences and businesses is mitigated. It's not never perfect, but we go through those concerns. That's my commitment to you. If we need to talk offline about other issues that you're concerned about, I'll give you all the time that you need, but that's my strategy is before shovels go in the ground, I will offer to meet with residents and have these discussions. So we have an itemized list of what those concerns are, how we can mitigate them so that we can coexist as best we can during construction. So that's my commitment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brockington, for that. So I'm not sure how am I going to be invited to that? I guess you could say, or when is that going to take place? Is there a sort of a planned meeting that's forthcoming?
Once I know the timeline's better for construction, I will, just like I did in the summer, hand deliver an invite to abutting neighbors, including your condo on Riverside, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
So you can always follow up with me by email if you don't hear from me soon. I don't think shovels are going in the ground tomorrow, but it will probably be in the spring. So we will connect soon.
So my last question, thank you for that. My last question is, how did this get approved to begin with? And if it's too long of an answer, then we can talk offline. But again, just to my earlier comment about, I find it really odd that a 5-story building would get built adjacent between residential homes, commercial property. That to me, I'm baffled. Again, this could be a long answer and a sort of other discussion that needs to happen, but I find it really, I know this is completely different. So I apologize to me. I don't necessarily need to go there in the sense that this is a different topic because it's going to be, I believe, facing Riverside, but still, I find it difficult sometimes to understand how zoning gets approved. And maybe it's just my lack of knowledge, that's all.
Chair, I don't know if you want me to answer or with it.
Well, I was going to suggest perhaps that is a question that's best taken offline. Councillor Brockington may be able to discuss that with you and even bring into the conversation some of the city planners and look at some of the historical discussions and decisions for this area. So I think that would likely be the best route to take, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation and sharing your comments today.
Thank you for your time.
Seeing no more questions. So we do have several representatives from the applicant who are available to speak and answer questions. We have James Ireland from Novatech, Anna Froelich from CCOC, and Cheryl Humuth and Janet Morris from St. Patrick's Home. For the applicant, did you wish to make to provide comments in the committee today, or I'm not sure if there's any questions from committee members in particular? Morning, James.
Morning, Chair. We don't have anything further to add, except to say that this is the zoning amendment application, and obviously the site plan will follow. So we haven't made an application for site plan, so a lot of issues will be dealt with through that process, and obviously that will delay construction, I would expect, past the spring at the very least. But if there's any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I believe we're okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I'll look to the committee. Any questions for the applicant? I'm seeing none. So thank you to James and your team for being here today, but I'm seeing no questions. Just for clarity, on the report recommendations, let's do yays and nays, just so it's clear to people who are tuning in today.
Chair, can I just make a few comments?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, Councillor Brock.
So Chair, I will be supporting this application. I'm proud to see the application on behalf of the Catholic Congregational Legacy Charity for phase 2 of their development. The original St. Pat's Home, which was built on the location we're actually talking about now, came down in 2012, 2013. The current building that is open now was opened in 2014, and it's a beautiful building. It's a long-term care home, and phase 2, the proposal before us today, is not a long-term care home per se. It's more of an apartment style building that will provide congregate living opportunities. There will be affordable housing units in this building. And I think for the members of the community who came out to the public meeting in July, that was an attractive feature for them. They really like to see that this is there are components within the building where people can dine together and be together, so that there are private living quarters, but there's also common areas within the building for people to congregate and be together. And the fact that the building's not being built on the abutting property line with the residential, it's actually in the middle of the property with very generous setbacks on the very north end of this property. The exact opposite side from the delegation we just heard, I think are all positive. So concerns that were raised are site plan related, and I certainly work with the applicant and the community when we get to the site plan. But as far as the planning application, I think this is a very good fit for our community, where we want to see a diverse mixed dwelling types in Riverside Park, Mooney's Bay. And I think that this will be a good fit. So I'm supportive of the application. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Worth noting too, given all of our discussions recently around tree and tree canopy, is I believe no trees are being proposed for removal as part of the construction as well. And there's a significant number of trees on the general site there. Okay, let's do yays and nays on this app. Oh,
Chair, can we just carry it with if there's any dissents? I don't know why we have to do yays and nays.
I agree.
I suppose we could. Yeah, we're just traditionally have done some yays and nays when we've had delegations for clarity, but if the committee would like to do to carry it, then we can do that.
Carried.
Carried.
The report recommendations are carried. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the third item, which is the zoning bylaw amendment for 129 and 133 Catherine Street and Somerset Ward. We have the motion that's been introduced by Councillor McKenney, and I know there were some questions on the motion. Councillor Dudas.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I just, the wording in the deferral motion speaks to needing proof. And I just was wondering if maybe staff can clarify what kind of proof would we be seeking in terms of ensuring that this applicant is meeting our needs before we allow it to go forward.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. To staff's thoughts on the motion, to be fair, we did not know that this motion was coming. Typically, in assessing an application today for 129 Catherine Street, it's very abnormal to tie it to conditions for or a situation for another site that the applicant happens to own. So I believe it's staff's position that we would not support the motion, and that we're here today to deal with the zoning amendment request for 129 Catherine Street. And I did want to speak to one comment from the councillor in our opening submission on construction at this site at Catherine Street. Construction actually has started on this site. The project is already formed and built and wrapped in Tyvek, as you can see in my presentation, but we should be focusing on this application at hand. I appreciate the councillor's concerns on the long history and frustrating history at Somerset House, but it's our position that we should be focusing on the matter at hand. And I don't know how to give you that answer, councillor, on what that proof would be with respect to Somerset House being advanced far enough. Thank you.
Okay, so, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your expertise on it. I think that, you know, the history of Somerset House and the adjacent properties, although it was mentioned in this motion, has been widely reported on. I recall being a reporter and having covered this very story. And we know of the neglect and the damage that it caused to something that could have been a wonderful heritage building. So I don't like rewarding bad behavior in respect to property owners that have preside over a heritage structure or anything else for that matter, especially when they're flouting city rules and regulations in other respects. So while I respect, Simon, your comments about how we should look at this one application, I think in the greater good, it does tie in to past history and precedents in terms of this property owner. I will be supporting deferral. I would like to know though what the proof would be, and maybe if I could put the question to the mover, whether it's at this time, I'd like to know what would be kind of that test as to whether we can proceed or not.
Thank you.
Councillor
With, with your will, co-chair, if I will. And I want to just say that I didn't not send it to staff. I did that intentionally because this is not in the purview of development review in terms of a deferral. So I did not include staff for that very reason. And when we think about the proof, if you will, that we're going to get movement on Somerset House, it's a commitment to actually deliver on the plans that they've brought to staff. They've worked with staff. They've much staff time has been taken up on possible applications going forward. So for me, it would be an application in front of us that is serious and that they are committed to following through on. And until we see that, this will drag on, I believe, for years before we see any movement. We just really don't have any other way of pushing it forward. So it's to send them back essentially, say, you know what, you come in front of us with an application that is serious, that you're committed to on Somerset House, and you get that approved. And when you get that approved, you come back on Catherine Street.
Thank you, Catherine. Councillor McKinney.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cloutier.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. And I'll certainly support a deferral, absolutely. And I could certainly see if it would be a no-brainer if it would be an application on the property that is not in compliance, absolutely. And I empathize because, as you said, Councillor McKinney, we have so few tools, and we saw that in Councillor Menard's ward with West Coast Video, and we have in my ward at 2660 South Vale Crescent problematic property owners. And so I understand that, and I see your opportunity here to send a strong message to the property owner that you have an application on this property, but we still have concerns. I guess can I ask staff, what is the statutory deadline for a decision by planning committee on this application?
If I may, Mr. Chair, the statutory timeline is long past. It was months ago. So we're into a position where it could be appealed by the owner.
Thank you for that. And so we can get appealed. And what are there are monetary implications. We will have to defend that appeal. Any other legal implications with respect to that action?
Mr. Chair, as Mr. Diaco outlined to committee, it is normal practice for an application in respect of a parcel of land to be evaluated solely on the land use impacts related to that parcel of land. To move beyond that will put the city in a difficult position for the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Noted. What is a difficult position, Mr. Mark? Can you elaborate? Reputational, financial?
Both, Mr. Chair. Both, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Can you speak to, I see on the report, it's public information, TKS Holdings. What if the two parcels were not in the same name? Would that weaken our position?
Mr. Chair, in my opinion, it makes no difference. So if they use different numbered companies to own it, or if it's owned by the same company, that does not change the city's, whatever position the city has in this.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last question, I guess, is to Councillor McKinney and it amplifies what Councillor Dudas said. And maybe we could take it offline. You know, what is a serious proposal? What is the proof that the property owner can be responsible? It's I want to be supportive, absolutely, because again, we have so few tools. But and perhaps we could have that conversation, Councillor McKenney, as to what your expectations are, because I certainly Somerset House is certainly an important parcel of land at Bank in Somerset, and we do want to see it improved and that property used. So if we could connect on that,
yeah,
I would appreciate it. Chairs, thank you. Merci.
Councillor Menard.
Thanks very much, Chair. It's important, I think, that we start to get a little more tough with property owners who keep decrepit buildings like this in our city. And it's not just that, it's the ones that flout the rules on a regular basis through property standards and otherwise. We have so many cases of that. I have several in my ward where a developer comes in, puts something up that wasn't agreed to, whether through committee of adjustment or the site plan. They ask for, or they just simply put in extra bedrooms, for example. We've got property owners that keep decrepit buildings on our main streets for a very, very long time. One thing we did when we first came in 2018, 2019 is we worked with city staff on the bylaw review. And we really pushed hard to get vacant buildings bylaw review in there. And we got that in there, and staff are supposed to come back in early 2022, is my understanding, with some updates. And I'm hoping more teeth compared to what we have in some other cities in Ontario and across the country for vacant buildings. Obviously, West Coast Video is an example, and we're making progress on that now, but it sat like that for 12 years. Somerset House is a heritage building. We need to be looking at expropriation for that building. We need to be pushing for expropriation of that building. And we do have the option to expropriate, but as Councillor McKenney says, it is not easy. But this committee, I think, should be sending a message. And I understand some of the implications with individual applications. But if we just keep going on this route, we're going to continue to see our rules flouted. So, I support the motion, and I also support full and complete expropriation of Somerset House as a heritage building as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I wanted to ask Mr. Mark, can you just elaborate a bit more on the resources you would need to defend this at LPAT, like in terms of cost, or is it external counsel? Is it internal staff who'd be defending that?
Mr. Chair, we would need an external planner. That much is for certain. As to the legal counsel that would do it, as I sit here, I don't know what the legal case would be, and sending it outside or doing it inside, it's the same problem. So I say for sure we would need an external planner. I would expect the applicant to bring a motion to the tribunal in order to seek to deal with this in an expedited format based on the situation as I understand it at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mark. Councillor Brockington?
I think Councillor Moffat had his hand up there.
Oh, so he does. Your hand is hidden in the frame of your picture on my screen, Councillor Chair Moffat. Go ahead. Scott.
Thanks. I'll have to change the color of my hand, make it one of these more Simpsons hands, because apparently it's too white. I think I understand the reality of this, and we heard from Tim Mark. We know that if this owner goes and appeals this decision, that we might lose. Councillor Menard talked about expropriation of the property. This owner doesn't deserve a cent of city money. If we expropriated this property, we'd have to pay market value for it. He wins. That is not okay with me. Deferring it might cost us a bit of money. But at this point, I'd rather spend money tying this guy up in court than giving him money to walk away and giving him the full value. And then we own the property. And then it's our problem. And then we have to try to repair the building or sell the building or get it developed. All of a sudden, the liability's on us. And he's walking away with all the money. Got issues with that. This is someone who does not play by the rules. So why should we be expected to as well? There's a long history on this. Simon mentioned that there's Tyvek wrap on it. The Tyvek wrap went up in April of 2019, or at least before April of 2019. And before that, there was other Tyvek wrap on the building. This is a property that partially collapsed. They held the brick wall up, but didn't do any insulation on the brick wall. Guess what happens when brick is exposed on both sides? It crumbles. So it fell down, and we had to take down the rest of the wall. If you don't maintain the property in any shape or form, it will further break apart. This is demolition by neglect. And, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe it's wrong to tie this property to the other. But this person does nothing for us. They never have. I've sat on Built Heritage Subcommittee since we created the committee in 2012. This keeps on coming back. New drawings. He had Richard Schmiel, great architect, Richard Schmiel. In my opinion, Tony Kay wasted Richard Schmiel's time, because Richard Schmiel brought forward a great project for this property in 2013, and then more submitted drawings in 2017, but still nothing. Oh, but Tyvek wrap. So I'm fine with deferral on this. If it means that TKS Holdings end up at the OLT on Catherine Street, so be it. But you can't let people like this keep on running roughshod over our rules, our elected officials. I mean, how many times have we talked about this, Councillor McKenney, Mayor Watson, about this property? And even before them, this predates almost our entire council membership, this issue. So whatever we can do to hold this guy to some sort of account that we have such limited ability to do, then we should take that opportunity.
Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Moffat, for those comments. I just want to know from Mr. Mark, if this motion of deferral passes, what's the city's strategy? We reach out to the applicant and say, the committee's put this on the side burner. We want you to address issues. Do you come back to this committee to give us an update? Is this a binding deferral that we don't want to hear until they've actually made some concrete progress? Talk me through this.
Mr. Chair, based on the wording of the resolution, a letter would go to the applicant outlining the position that council has taken, and await a response from the applicant. The resolution is clear in that it seeks actions with respect to Somerset Street House. It's not immediately clear to me that absent action on Somerset House, that the resolution invites staff to come back to committee. And so I think that if it's appealed and a hearing is scheduled in front of the tribunal, there might be an opportunity to report to committee at that time.
Yeah, I'm looking at, if they don't appeal right away and they actually try and make some progress on some of the issues that Councillor McKenney has identified in their motion, when do we conclude, well, that's sufficient, we now want to bring this back to committee? Like, ideally, I don't want to go to appeal. Ideally, I want the owner to address the issues that Councillor McKenney's concerned about, that we're all concerned about. But at what point do we conclude, all right, they've made sufficient progress. We're now going to revisit their application for Catherine Street and we're going to deal with that application outside of an appeal. Because I think we should avoid the appeal at all costs. We should actually try and make progress on the outstanding matters.
Mr. Chair, it seems to me that this goes back to the first question when this item came up as to what is sufficient progress to satisfy the motion. And I'm not in a position where I could answer that at this time.
Okay, so I think that has to, Councillor McKenney, you've heard that. I think that the landowner goes to appeal and his appeal is successful, nothing that's outstanding gets addressed because the appeal will only deal with the application, right? And none of the outstanding matters will be germane to the appeal. The appeal is about Catherine Street application. And so I agree with our limited tool chest. This is one thing that Catherine McKenney's proposing to try and force them to address some of those outstanding issues. Like other colleagues, I'm willing to go down that route at this point. But at the end of the day, I want to avoid appeal because I don't think appeals in the city's best interest. The appeal will just be about Catherine Street and not the other matters. So thank you.
Councillor Leeper.
Thanks, Chair. So, colleagues, I don't know the legalities of this, but what I do know is that if we give this developer permission today through a zoning for a new project from which they will profit, that will only diminish trust. I'm no stranger to recalcitrant heritage property owners. I know how difficult it is to do my job as a city councillor when I'm forced to throw up my hands and plead process. I know the degree to which residents find that frustrating. They feel as if the city doesn't have their back. And dealing with the matter of Catherine Street today is just going to make it that much more difficult for us to win the trust of our residents that we've got their back. And I'm more than happy, regardless of what the legal outcome might be, to support Catherine in this motion today.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments on the deferral motion?
Just Google McGee House if you want to know what Councillor Leeper was just talking about.
Don't even say it out loud. It's too soon.
Councillor McKenney, did you want to wrap up on your deferral motion?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just very quickly, I just want to thank everyone for their comments today and for, just you're thinking around Somerset House. I mean, it really is. It's a Part 4 heritage building. It is a prime example of demolition by neglect. I do believe at this point that is the goal of the owner, and we just cannot allow that to happen in our city. This is in front of us as a zoning bylaw amendment. We have the right to say yes or no. This is, and this is not conventional to defer something based on another property. But as several of you have pointed out, this is an exceptional case. This is an owner who has shown time and time and time again, year after year, that he is not willing to essentially be a good neighbor. And I say that when I respond to residents or when I walk down Bank near Somerset near Bank or the other way, I get stopped almost every time. I actually sometimes avoid that corner when I'm out walking because people do not understand, as Councillor Leeper said, they do not understand that we just don't have the tools to compel. Outside of expropriation, we don't have the tools to compel a developer, without an empty buildings bylaw to actually do something with their property. So it is not conventional. I understand that. What is proof you know what, that will be a political decision at some point. If we get an application in front of us, if it's serious, if he's moving forward on site plan, perhaps that's the time. And that will be for us to decide again, if in fact, it's not an LPAT or tribunal decision. But this is nothing more than sending a very strong message to not just this owner, but other owners in our city who are allowing buildings to be demolished by neglect, especially heritage buildings, that we're not going to stand for it anymore, and that we're going to use every tool we have as a committee, as a council, to ensure that we're holding them to account for their responsibilities in our city. So I thank everyone for the thoughtful discussion and appreciate your support. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. I support you on this. And I actually think your motion does define when it's appropriate to consider this Catherine Street file again. You mentioned in the motion the property owner being a responsible downtown property owner and committing to deliverable plans to really rehabilitate Somerset House. So you've got two conditions there. It's around plans to rehabilitate Somerset House. And in the preamble to your motion, you mentioned the non-conforming parking lot. So I think you're very clear in the conditions that you want to see to establish a responsible owner and a commitment to rehabilitate the building. So I thank you for introducing the deferral motion. On that deferral motion, is it carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Carried. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
There are no in-camera items today. Are there any notices of motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting? I'm seeing none. Are there any inquiries? Other business? All right, then we are adjourned, and our next meeting is Monday, November 8th, a special Monday meeting because November 11th is Remembrance Day. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Great job keeping it under 8 hours. Terrific.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
It's my only failure as chair is I spend too long in the meeting. It's because I just latch onto it. I just don't want to give it up. I don't get to chair the biweekly meetings. So when I do get a chance to chair, I just want to chair forever.
Bye.
I like Glenn's meeting, not
only
Scott's meeting.
failure